All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to another episode of The Truth with Ben Jokes, your number one political talk show. Akpabio has dismissed allegations of senators receiving bribe to endorse Rivers state of emergency, calling it a blackmail campaign against lawmakers. Now, the Constitution states that for a state of emergency declaration to stand, it must get two-thirds of votes from the Senate and the House of Reps. Two-thirds is a mathematical expression that can only be achieved by computing 2/3 times the number of lawmakers in the chamber at the time. But this criminal and his fellow criminals decided to use a voice vote because some lawmakers allegedly did not collect the bribe and they were bent on voting against the state of emergency. This criminal is now coming to deny that lawmakers took bribe. So why did you use voice vote instead of counting the number of lawmakers present? Determine a two-thirds and vote by raising of hand as the Constitution demands. Why didn't you do that? Despicable human being. And few hours ago, Professor Wole Soyinka got on Channels TV and completely disgraced himself. He was asked his opinion on the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State, and obviously he knew it was bad. But instead of him calling Tinubu a tyrant and a modern-day Nebuchadnezzar, the way he called Jonathan, he began stuttering and spewing all manner of meaningless, baseless, needless, useless words, and Nigerians came down heavily on him. And next is that fresh update of bombing of another pipeline. Even with the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State, bombing continues, and in no time it will begin to affect the country's revenue. But now we are confused. Who are today's bombers? Are they Fubara's boys reacting to his suspension, or Wike and Tinubu's boys trying to justify the declaration of a state of emergency? Before I show you details of these top stories and how Nigerians reacted, let me quickly show you this video.
Decisions that are taken by the executive arm of government, decisions that are taken by the parliament, judicial decisions affect everybody. For example, no businessman can bring his money to invest in a country where the judiciary is compromised, where a government functionary can dictate to judges what judgment they will give. No man brings his money to invest in that economy because we are taking a big risk. So whatever we do affects everybody. And if we must build a nation for our children and our grandchildren, no matter how painful it is, we must strive to do what is right. It may cost us, but we must endeavor and pay the price to insist on doing what is right. Whether you are holding an executive office as a president, a minister, or a governor, or a special advisor, or executive, whether you are holding an office in the parliament, senate, or rep, whether you're a judicial officer at the high courts or appellate courts, we must strive to do what is right. If we want to build a nation that our children will be proud of.
You heard that. Ex-President Goodluck Jonathan speaking to Tinubu there. He actually made that statement after he criticized the suspension of Governor of Rivers State, Sim Fubara, calling it unconstitutional. And of course, he began talking about the judiciary because normally that is the next place Fubara is supposed to run to. But Tinubu and Wike have bought over the courts. What we have as a result of all that impunity is a nation that has population but can't attract investors. Is a lawless place, a zoo as many will call it. It's like a market where goods are not safe. No trader will display his or her goods there. And that is what this country has become under the APC. The poverty capital of the world, one of the most insecure countries in the world, the country with one of the worst currencies in the world, and the country with the worst investor to population ratio in the world. What a disaster. Now, let us look at the top stories. First is that disgraceful interview from Professor Wole Soyinka also known as Professor Gbajue. The old man was struggling with, mild words to use to describe Tinubu's impunity in Rivers State. It was really terrible, to say the least. And next is that fresh update on the attack on pipeline in Rivers State. Is it Fubara's men angrily reacting to his suspension, or Wike trying to justify the state of emergency declaration? But either way, our national revenue is in trouble if another wave of militancy begins in Niger Delta. Let's start by taking that video from Soyinka.
This situation is actually a few days old, and I was watching what action will be taken by the House of Assembly, by Senate, and even by the affected politicians in Rivers State, whom I expect to be in the court by now, because above the above the president himself, there's the law, and I expect those who are affected to take the primary step. Let me confess that I was surprised at the ease with which this emergency law, that step, was applauded and passed. And then the critical question, even within the powers of a president on a democratic dispensation, there are areas of discretion. And you're quite right to point out this wholesale suspension of everything to government. I think that's an over excessive response within the rights and the powers. We're assuming now, let's say that the president is constitutionally right, but within his powers, there are also areas of discretion. And I think that the wholesale scuttling of the democratic existence in the rivers was excessive. I think it could have been managed much better, much more economically. I think the president did not sort of curb the extent. He didn't economize on his presidential emergency powers. On that issue, I agree with you absolutely. There's an issue of the Constitution. Is the president's action constitutional? And I hope the affected politicians, governor and representatives, that they test this all the way up so that we get a clearer picture once and for all. Instead of running around in circles from regime to regime, it should be possible by now for one to be able to say confidently that this action is illegal, is unconstitutional, or otherwise. So for now, we can leave it to the constitutional lawyers to guide us. Now, the next question is it politically wise? In my view, this takes us on a slippery slope. It's not what I would have liked to see happen right now with all our struggle to attain a federal structure. The spirit of it, in my view, is contrary to the spirit of federalism. Now, I speak very carefully and deliberately, because this does not vitiate maybe the rightness of the action. It does not establish the wrongness. But with my commitment to a genuine federal structure, when an event like this happens, I say we're back on the slippery slope. And I hope that it is tested all the way, because as I've said, we've been through this before under different regimes. It's either we have a decentralized federalist structure, or we have a quasi-dictatorial, whimsical kind of government which just panders to the political leaning of whoever happens to be in charge at the moment. So that's my take on it. Obviously, I'm going to go deeper and find out just what on earth has been going on in the real estate that led to this, what I consider an unfortunate step in our federalist journey.
You saw that. What a shame. May we never be in this kind of situation. This man was noble as a young man, standing on the side of truth. But in his old age, he has lost it all. He called Jonathan a tyrant, a modern-day Nebuchadnezzar, for increasing fuel price from 97 naira to 150 naira. which he reversed after a few days. But here is Tinubu spitting on the constitution of this country, but this same Soyinka can't even call his name. This tweet here by the Nigerian Citizen says, finally, this fraudfessor has spoken, and it still turns out to be as foolish as he has become. Wole Soyinka is a fraud that can speak and write in English. And KOI here says, this old fag should excuse us. Nobody wants to hear from him again. He has boxed himself into irrelevance forever. Oh, and this tweet here by Kolawole Bello says, it is troubling to see an erudite scholar, a sage, a confident, fluent, eloquent, often unapologetic, masterful wordsmith, stutter and prevaricate over a crystal clear situation. I consider this a typical calculated Gbajue method of response in order not to hurt his friend. Wole Soyinka has totally humiliated himself. Who even told him to turn up for this interview? It was unnecessary. And just as Nigerians were yet reacting to that update from Rivers State began making the rounds. Look at how the papers reported it. Another explosion rocks gas facility in Rivers State. The Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center, a grassroots NGO with strong networks across the Niger Delta, confirmed the latest explosion on Sunday. In a statement signed by its executive director, Dr. Fineface Dunamene, Fineface said it received reports from its youth volunteers about an early morning explosion at the Soku oil facility operated by Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Limited. According to the statement, an explosion accompanied by fireballs was heard and seen in the sky from the facility area, which is difficult to reach. The fire is still ongoing as of the time of this report. The cause of the explosion remains uncertain, with speculations ranging from equipment failure, sabotage, and deliberate attack. This marks the third explosion at oil facilities in Rivers State in less than a week. The first occurred in Ogoni, while the second was in Oga Egbema Ndoni local government area, an incident referenced by Bola Tinubu in his March 18 nationwide broadcast while declaring a 6-month state of emergency in Rivers State. Following this incident, Tinubu suspended the Rivers State House of Assembly Deputy Governor and Governor Fubara, citing his alleged failure to protect oil infrastructure. The decision followed threats by some youths in a viral video warning against Governor Fubara's impeachment. And this tweet here by Bob Banel says, does the law say that Tinubu cannot declare a second state of emergency and suspend the sole administrator, then install one of Wike's sons to become the sole governor of the state? Bob Manel is being sarcastic there. Yes, maybe he can just go ahead and also declare another state of emergency and remove this sole administrator and put Wike's son there. And this tweet here says another state of emergency should be declared, then remove the sole administrator and replace him with a mind administrator in Diala. Adeniji here says, has the current administrator made any statement concerning this? If no, please, another state of emergency is required and a new sole admin installed immediately. What a mockery of Aso Rock. That is what Nigerians are doing right now. And what a game is going on in Rivers State. Now tell me, what do you think? Do you think the men who bombed that place are Fubara's men, or are they Wike's men? I'm confused too. But I will be happy if it is actually Fubara's men doing the damage, because that is the only language that the APC understands. Violence. So, Fubara, bring back the militants if you can. The last time we had militant activities in Nigeria, even Obasanjo couldn't stop them with force. It took a soft and smart Yaradua to introduce the amnesty program. Now it seems that Tinubu is about to add to the honors in his cabinet of failure, the man who brought back Niger Delta militants. Because if our oil production should go down with this present economy, this country will collapse. And that is what Tinubu and Wike are playing with. This is not something to play with at all. But this is the APC. They have come to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And if Nigerians don't get rid of them, this country remains a sinking ship. But until then, make I still enter town, make I go get some ogbonge political news wey una go like. Why? Because of una, na I dey here. So don't go away. Don't go.